In today's video, I'm going to show you how to get your clients to pay you on time every single time using Dubsado. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new around here, hello, my name is Ray. I'm the creator of Productive Co. I help service-based business owners with their systems and automation, and I'm also a certified Dubsado specialist. In today's video, we're talking about payment plans. Payment plans go on invoices to create a due date or several due dates for that invoice. And this is very important to have so that you get paid on time. Now, before we dive in, I just want to let you know that if you need more help with Dubsado after this tutorial, I have a ton of free and paid resources available on my website that I'll link to down below this video. And if you are interested in this type of content, make sure you hit that like button down below so I know to make more content like this. Okay, now let's take a look at this sample invoice here so I can visually explain to you what a payment plan is. So whenever you create an invoice in Dubsado, you're going to have a logo at the top, and then you can show who it's going to and who it's from. So that would be your client, and then it's from your business. And just below that, you're going to start having the line items on the invoice. In Dubsado, these are called packages. So you can add one package to an invoice, or you can add multiple packages to an invoice. You have a lot of flexibility there. On this invoice, we just have one line item, and it's called a photography package, and it's for $1,000. Now, just below that is where you can add a payment plan. Now, by default, there's not going to be any due date on any invoice you create. So you'll want to make sure that you have it set up so that the invoices you create have a payment plan attached to them. Okay, so on this payment plan here, we have 3 different installments for this one invoice. So it's going to take this $1,000 package and break it down into 3 almost even installments. Now, payment plans work even if you want the entire invoice paid in one payment. So you can have a payment plan that just has one due date. And again, I really want you to make sure that you include a payment plan on every single invoice you send out. That way you'll get paid on time. Because if there's no due date on an invoice, then the client isn't liable to pay you by a certain time. Okay, so let me take you into Dubsado's back end so that you can learn how to set these up. So in Dubsado, you can create a template library where you can house a bunch of different templates. And then that way, whenever you go to create a new invoice or send a form to a client, you don't have to create those things from scratch. You can just make copies from your template library. So in this templates area here, there's a section called payment plans. This is where you're going to set up your payment plan templates. And you can create a new template by selecting the button on the upper right corner that says create new template. In this tutorial, I'm going to call this 50/50 to indicate that there's 2 installments and each require 50% of the invoice total. Now, after you're done naming your payment plan template, you can begin adding the installments by selecting add installment. Then you'll click on where it says TBD select due date. This will allow you to set the due date for the first installment. So you have a couple of different options here. You can set a relative due date, which is what you're going to choose most of the time when you're creating a template. What a relative due date does is it readjusts the due date based on a specific condition you set. So if you were to send out 3 different invoices at different points in time, the due date would automatically recalibrate based on the condition you set. Whereas a fixed due date is a calendar due date, such as January 1st. And that means those 3 invoices you send out would all have an installment due on January 1st, even if you sent out the invoice in February or March. So that's why I say you'll probably use a relative due date most of the time when you're creating a template. Now, in this case, let's say I want to make the first payment due 7 days before the start date of the project. This means that whatever date I set for the project to start, it's going to change the first installment to be due based on that date. Now, if I choose if I choose 7 days after payment plan applied to the invoice, this means that whenever the invoice is created, the first installment is going to be due 7 days later. That's a really handy one to use. It's probably the option I use most often. Now, the third option here is called TBD. You're probably not going to do this on the first installment if your payment plan has multiple installments. The TBD stands for to be determined. So this is really helpful for people who have businesses where they need to charge clients a second, third, or fourth installment, but it's based on when a certain milestone is reached and not based on a set date, like a calendar date. So instead of telling your clients that they need to pay you 3 weeks from the start date, you say, well, after you've reached this certain milestone, like you've approved a certain number of proofs or whatever, that's when I'm going to go back in and set a hard due date for this. So this is really just a placeholder for your clients to know that they're going to have a second or third installment at some point, but for right now, you don't know the due date. The second choice you'll need to make is how much you want due for this particular installment. If you select divide equally and then add another installment, Dubsado will automatically calculate how much each installment is going to be for based on the total of the invoice. So if a client chooses a package that's $3,000, Dubsado will automatically calculate that into two $1,500 payments. But if the client chooses a package that's $1,000, Dubsado will automatically recalculate it so that each payment is $500. So Dubsado will calculate it for you. Now, if you choose a percentage, what this does is it tells Dubsado that you want the first or this particular installment to charge a certain percentage of the invoice total. So it could be 30% or 25%. This is really helpful if you want to charge different percentages for each installment. And then the last option is fixed. This is going to be a set number. So if you put that you want $1,000 paid for the first installment, Dubsado is going to require that $1,000 be paid for the first installment, whether the invoice is $2,000 or $10,000. So it sets a fixed number for it. Now, this next part is one of my favorite features within Dubsado. It's quite simple, but it's so powerful. And this is where you can add payment reminders. So when you add a due date to an invoice, the due date just lives on the invoice and the client can look at it and then they can walk away and forget that the payment was due. And now if they go overdue, the invoice will just read that it's overdue. But if you add reminders, Dubsado will send them email reminders for each installment until they pay that installment. So you can select add reminder and say that you want this reminder to go out, let's say 5 days before the due date of this installment. And you can choose the time that you want it to go out if you want it to go out during, say, business hours. And then you can choose the email that you want to go out as the reminder. Now, Dubsado has a default payment reminder email. You can just leave it at that. That's very simple. But if you want to write a custom payment reminder email, you can select write new email and then just follow the prompts. Once you're done with that, you'll hit apply. Now this will have one reminder for this installment. I generally like to add 3 reminders per installment. So I would just duplicate this again and maybe make this 3 days before the due date and then 1 day before the due date. Okay, so this is now one installment in my payment plan. Now, let's just say I want to save time. I can come up here to where the ellipses icon is at the top of this installment and then just duplicate it. And then now on the second installment, I'm just going to change a couple of things. So I need to change the due date so that the 2 installments aren't due on the same date. So I'll just say, make this due 21 days after it's been applied to the invoice. So the first payment will be due 7 days after it's been applied to the invoice. And then the second installment will be due 21 days. And then we're choosing the percentage of 50. Oops, I actually need to go back and make sure my first installment is 50%. or divide equally. And then I've got my reminders here. So now all of these reminders are built in. So let me just go back in here and change this to divide equally. And then now I have 2 equal payments. You can see that listed here. Okay, great. So that is how you set up a payment plan template. So now that you know how to set up a payment plan template, let's talk about using these on invoices. In Dubsado, there's actually, I'm going to say 3 different ways that you can do this. 1, you can have a workflow automation, create the invoice, and then apply the payment plan template to that invoice. The second option is in regards to proposals. There you can choose what payment plan you want attached to the invoice. So in order to do this, you're going to go down to templates, forms, and then under the proposal area, select the proposal you want to add the payment plan to, and then go to the settings area. You can choose which payment plan you would like to attach to the proposal. Now, the last way is when you need to manually create an invoice. So let's say that you have a client that's come to you for a one-off project, and now you need to invoice them for this special thing that you're doing for them. You can go into the projects area, locate their project in Dubsado, and then go to the invoices tab. From here, you can start building out a new invoice. So right here up on the right side, you can select packages. These are your package templates. So these are templates that you can add to this invoice. If you don't want to do that and you want to create something custom for them, you can just go to new line item and then fill it out. Once you're done adding the line items, now it's time to add the payment plan. So down here, you can choose from a payment plan template where this drop down is, or you can create a custom payment plan for this invoice here. But I like to save time, so I try to use templates as much as possible. So I'm going to select that 50/50 payment plan that I made, and then automatically this calculates when this invoice is going to be due. So because I set the first payment to be due 7 days after it was applied to an invoice, now it'll be due 7 days from this point in time. And the second installment is due 21 days after the invoice is created. So that'll make it 21 days from now. Now, payment plans also work for recurring invoices. That's where you have a similar looking invoice go out every single month or every single week or so on. And you can just go in here and create a new recurring invoice. Now, when it will ask you when you want the recurring invoice to start on, when it says start, it means that it's going to generate the invoice on that date. Okay, so if I put January 1st, that means the invoice is going to be created on January 1st. Now, the payment plan is what's going to create the due date for it, okay? So just keep those things in mind when you're building out a recurring invoice. So that is everything you needed to know about payment plans. If you liked this video, please make sure that you hit the like button down below. It tells me that I should make more content like this, and it also helps out my YouTube channel. And in case you're interested, I have plenty of free resources over on my website that can help you with Dubsado and other tools for systems and automation for service-based business owners. That's all for today. I'll see you next time. Bye.